Howdy, gang, and welcome to, well, at least for me, and I think for Chris, he's going to be joining me here in a little bit, the much anticipated episode of Everybody Wants England. Me and Chris are going to be breaking down 2001 Maniacs, Hatchet, and Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. And we're going to give our ratings on all three of these films, including our rating for Robert Englund's performance in each one of these films. Now, Chris might be surprised at one of these when I start talking about it, because I'm just going to say my feelings have changed a little bit on the film upon rewatch. So, and you guys in the chat or just watching may be surprised as well. But before we get started, I hope everybody liked that intro, the new intro that I put over the top, because I heard the original Billy Squires song the other day, just on off chance, that I heard it. I was listening to music on YouTube, and I was like, wouldn't this be a cool song to use as the intro for Everybody Wants England? And I was like, I wish I had heard this song before I started this series, but of course I had to find a cover version. I could not use the Billy Squire version. That was a version done by a family band called the Night Owls. I encourage you to check them out on YouTube. Just put the Night Owls in, and that should be one of the top things that come up. And the girl does a lot of the lead vocals, the daughter. The father plays guitar. One of the sons plays guitar. The other son plays drums, and the daughter sings on most of the songs. And she's got, excuse me for saying it like this, but she's got a hell of a set of pipes on her. So I encourage you to go listen to some of their other covers that they've got of some very well-known songs. Hey, Batman. And in addition to that, I want to just let you know what's coming up for the rest of the week. So we got another Apples and Oranges coming up tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Going to be talking about Final Exam. So whether you love it or you hate it or it's just meh for you, I invite you to join me and whoever else wants to join me on camera to discuss Final Exam tomorrow night. Thursday will be the return of Seductive Poison, the Resurgence Triple Threat Review Show. I'll be talking about Cat's Eye, The Cellar, and a Spanish horror film called Cemetery of Terror. And Friday, will you get a double dose of me, but the second dose of me, I will be joined by Candace, and that will be our Friday Foolish show. But before that, at around 11:45 a.m. Eastern Time, I will be having another Terror Time tea, and I actually do have my movies picked out that I'm going to discuss, and that's going to be Night School and Wes Craven's The Serpent and the Rainbow. And then Candace and I, at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday Foolish, will be talking about some of the most bizarre films that we have ever seen. And that doesn't just include horror, it's going to be all encompassing. So be sure to tune in for all of that. No movie munchies, no watch alongs this weekend. And just a note, in case you hadn't heard me say this yet, I will be taking a few months off of doing the movie munchies, but the watch alongs will return every other weekend. Hey, Blissful. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and add Chris on here so we can get started talking about these movies. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Dana. How's it going?
Good. Feeling pretty good today. Of course, I'm stuffing my face. I got key lime pie. It's a Marie Callender's key lime pie.
I
So
see.
you can't have everybody wants England without me stuffing my face with something. Usually I'm doing that on just about all the streams. We got a pretty good crowd in here, Chris. We got about 9 people in here
Cool.
right now.
See
So
that.
evidently people want to hear us talk about these movies and what we think of them tonight.
Well, they're all I think, in my opinion, all three of these that we're covering tonight are pretty good films. I mean, there's some people out there that wouldn't agree with that necessarily, but that again, it's all personal preference, like I always say. Um, and to me, I've always enjoyed, all three of these, and I've watched them all multiple times.
Hmm. Well, I will say that 2001 Maniacs and Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, that was a first time watch for me
Oh,
for both
really?
of those. Yeah.
That's actually probably my favorite out of these three. So,
Uh, yes, Sean, and we have covered the Paper Brigade. I
yep,
think
sure have.
Candace and Chris were on there for me
Yeah,
or with me for that.
I
Uh,
love Pepper Brigade.
but so anyway, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I do have. Well, I stowed Steve's copies of these because I saw them on his shelf real quick, and I was too lazy to go find my copy of Hatchet. So I just pulled it off his shelf. But I do have a visual aid for Hatchet. This is the unrated director's cut. And Steve also has a copy of Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon as
Yeah, I
well.
should have brought my because I got the DVD of all three of these movies. So,
So
but
we
I never do that. So,
well, sometimes I try, or a lot of times I'll try to have a visual aid. I don't know why. I guess because I've seen so many YouTubers out there just hold up, you know,
yeah.
this is what I got, or this is what I'm unboxing, or this is
I,
what I
I
got 2 days ago.
I guess I could have brought my Tony Terrors figure in here of Victor Crowley to show, but
Yeah, you still can if you want.
yeah, I may go get it here in just a second.
Hey, Candace, and Blissful says, please hit the thumbs up. Thank you, Blissful, as always. So we're going to talk about 2001 Maniacs first.
Mhm.
And since Chris is my guest or my co host on here, I'm going to let him start talking about it first, and then I will take a turn. Then we'll go to the next one. So,
So 2001 Maniacs. I think Tim Sullivan is the one that directed this. And it has several people in it that you may recognize from the horror genre, including Robert Englund, who does play Mayor Buckman, and then Lynn Shay, who plays Granny in it. I'm sure she has another name, but I just call her Granny in that. And then Eli Roth even has a
yeah,
cameo in the film as a
that's,
hitchhiker.
that's probably the goofiest character I've ever seen Eli Ross play.
Yeah, it is pretty good. I mean, but I like it. I like his character.
Mhm.
And that's one thing I can say about Eli Roth is I do like his acting roles because
Oh,
they're always like really strange and goofy and they're and funny, Um, but as far as like his directing stuff, I'm not much on that. But anyway, they're 2001 Maniacs is a fantastic film. I mean, there's a it obviously it's just like this group of kids, or they're like probably in maybe their early 20s or something. They're like just going on this like road trip, and I think they're like going on vacation or something. So, and then they come through this like old Southern style town, like where it feels like it's out of like the 17 or 1800s or something like that. And
mhm.
it's in the middle of this like festival they have going on. And they're all hospitable at first and everything, and they're welcoming. But then, as you know, as it goes on, you find out that they're actually killing all these people that are coming through here, and either I guess either turning them into food or just playing games with them basically is to and who can come with the most creative kills. And there is like a really creative kill in this. I do like where this the one of the girls in the movie, she goes off and she meets, I might be butchering his name, but Giuseppe Andrews. He's also plays the
Yeah.
cop in Cabin Fever. He played Lex in the movie Detroit Rock City.
Yeah.
Um, but he is one of the townspeople in this. And him and this girl that has come to the town. They go off together into this barn, and you think they're going to have sex or whatever, and he like blindfolds the girl, and then as she's been blindfolded, here come all these other town people who she's not aware that they're there, and both her arms get tied up as well as both of her legs, and each of those ropes that are on her limbs are the other end of the rope is tied to four horses. And then as you can guess, the four horses take off all in four different directions and rip this girl's limbs off. And it's pretty cool looking. The
Yeah.
effects in this are really good. The gore is I appreciate all the really good gore in this. I mean, there is some CGI stuff here and there, but I mean, overall, it looks really good. And yeah, like TJ said in the comments, it's a remake of H.G. Lewis's 2000 Maniacs.
And he also calls it 2001 un-PC Maniacs. Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
un-PC.
Herschel Gordon Lewis, who did 2000 Maniacs. Yeah, and I believe it does say in the opening credits too. It's like
I believe so.
based on the film by Herschel Gordon Lewis. Blah blah blah. But yeah, it's really fun. There's a guy, you may not be familiar with him, but he plays the blacksmith of the town folk. Um, and it's a wrestler named Madman Pondo, who's
Mhm.
actually, I believe he does live in Louisville, Kentucky. He goes to a lot of horror conventions and stuff as a fan and stuff. And I seen him maybe a year or two ago at the Louder Than Life Music Festival in Louisville. He was doing security that weekend.
Oh, okay.
And but he plays the blacksmith in 2001 Maniacs, and I believe there is like a German poster that they put out of 2001 Maniacs. That he is actually on the poster of that, because most of the stuff that you see, the posters from 2001 Maniacs, it just has Robert Englund
Right.
on the cover, and I don't know. Like I really, really like this film. It's definitely a comedy horror because there's a lot of like comedy within this because and then the whole like backwards like atmosphere of like these people that live in the South and stuff, and it's like I said, they're from like the 17 or 1800s. I think there's a few terms that I'm not going to mention what those terms are, but if you want to
Right.
watch the film, you can probably guess what I'm talking about. But they do use a few terms referring to some certain other characters that come into their town, and it's very a very backwards type term, like
Yes.
stuff that we can't use in this time, in this day and age without being canceled or anything.
Yeah.
Uh, but overall, and I don't want to if you've never seen the movie, I don't want to give too much of it away, but it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic. I think it's when I think of Robert Englund's roles, and I love him in this as Mayor Buckman.
Yeah.
Um, you know, outside of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, this is always one of the first Robert Englund films I think of when I'm thinking of like his filmography. And they did some sequels to this, I believe one or two sequels, and in the follow up sequel to this, it is the same character of Mayor Buckman in it, but Robert Englund is actually replaced by Bill Moseley in that one. Um, and yeah, if I think of anything else that I can come back to that, but I'll let you go ahead now, Dana, and give your thoughts on it.
Okay, so again, this was a first time watch for me, but now I love this movie so much. I'm gonna have to seek it out and buy it because I want to add it to my collection now.
Mm.
There's just absolutely no doubt about it, and I'm like, dang, how did this go under my radar? I
Oh,
don't know how in the world it's like.
that's actually shocking to me that that's your first time watching it, but that's awesome that you did watch it because there's a lot of people out there that I have told about this film and it's like, oh, I've never heard of that, I've never seen that.
And I had heard of it, and I knew somewhere in the back of my brain that it was that it had Robert Englund in it quite a
Mhm.
bit. He's he's in almost every scene of this movie, except for maybe just a handful with just the young people, the college students, and another thing, and people may say, "Oh, here's Dana being prudish again." But another thing I appreciated about this movie is it was a good mixture of horror and comedy. It had a lot of gore in it, a lot of great gore, as Chris said. I really liked that scene he was talking about where the girl's limbs were pulled off.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing I noticed was it was refreshing to me that was just enough nudity to make it interesting for guys, if you know what I mean. And as Joe Bob says, and I think you do. So there's just enough nudity in there, but I didn't feel like there was gratuitous nudity where it was just up there, kind of just titillating the audience. And also, I didn't think that the F word was not used a lot in this. It was used some,
Yeah,
but
very very little now that you mention it, I never really paid attention to that.
they weren't saying it every breath. There have been some movies where it's just you're like, can you say anything else other than that word? Can you save that for really uh you're really angry or something like that, not just like it's in general conversation.
um there's something in it though that did like strike me as kind of strange, and and it does every time I watch it. But I'm like, why don't they like look into that more, like what that was and when that happened? And it's there's a part where um, after two of the characters have been killed, they're playing a festival game where they're throwing like
Mm,
hatchets,
oh, yeah.
and what they're actually throwing them at is these two severed heads, but they're turned around so you don't see their faces, you just see the back of
But how
their
can they
hair.
not tell that they're heads,
And
you
then
know?
so yeah, these other people that's come to the town that that are just they're passing through, they're taking part in that game, and they're like, "What is that?" And they
What
don't
if
really question it after that.
one of the guys says, "Oh, a mink or something," I think.
Yeah, yeah, he says something like that, but I'm like, they don't even like
Mm,
go over there and look and see what it actually is. They're like, whatever, and then they just kind of carry on. So it's kind of like I said, it's got a lot of silly stuff in it that just kind of they throw in there, but they don't kind of explore it much.
I'm
But
wondering if that was just thrown in there to have a little more comedic
yeah,
edge
yeah,
to
yeah,
it.
possibly I would think so. And but yeah, it's just fun overall, especially that
And
final battle with Robert Englund.
that was epic. But Robert England's I'll talk a little bit about Robert England's character of Mayor Buckman.
Hmm.
I absolutely this is probably one of my favorite Robert Englund roles
Yeah, mine too.
because in Freddy he's dark and he's dangerous and he's deadly and all this stuff. And then in the later ones he cracks jokes and stuff like that, but I feel like even though as Freddy Krueger, you could see like Robert Englund's eyes, and anybody that knows who Robert Englund is knows that was Robert Englund playing Freddy Krueger. I think when Robert Englund, you get to see his whole face in movies, I think that that's where he really gets to shine.
Mm-hmm.
And he got to be expressive and all this. And you could tell that Robert Englund was having a hell of a good time playing this character. And because he was having such a good time, he was able to give his all into this character. And he became Mayor Buckman, this goofy, crazy mayor of this southern town, and so you also have Lynn Shay, as Chris said, playing. Isn't it Granny Boone? They call her
Yeah,
Granny,
that's what that is. That's what it is, Granny Boone. Yeah.
and she almost steals the show from Robert Englund, even when she's on the screen, because of how much she encapsulates that character of Granny Boone. You could almost believe for the what is it, an hour and 27 minutes or something that this it's not a very long movie that it's on, that Robert Englund is Mayor Buckman and Lynn Shay is Granny Boone. There's no Robert Englund, there's no Lynn Shay. There's just Mayor Buckman and Granny Boone in the scenes that they're in. And I just think that that made this an incredibly fun movie. It's a very gory movie, but as gory as it is, it's so much fun that I found myself laughing through a lot of the movie. And some people are probably like, "Good Lord, Dana, what's wrong with you? You're laughing and somebody's getting their legs and arms pulled off,
Well,
and
it's kind
somebody."
of like Blood Diner, like you
Yeah,
see stuff,
exactly.
the kind of gore you scenes they have in Blood Diner. It's like it's not gory to where you're just like being terrified by the thing, but it's like it's done in a comedic manner.
Mm.
Um, so that way you're like it's maybe kind of gross looking to like a casual viewer, but it's also funny at the same time as how they're you know putting it out there on film.
Yeah. And Chris was talking about that epic last battle scene where Robert Englund shines once again, and he's got the sword, and there's fire, and there's a motorcycle in all this, and as if that wasn't enough, you have the final, which I'm not going to give away because you got to see this, you got to watch this movie for yourself,
Hmm.
and so the final, I'd say 2 to 3 scenes, you get this humongous twist in it.
Yeah.
And it made it unlike any like recent, like, well, not recent maybe, but those 80s slasher films. I'm just going to say one thing, you don't get a final girl or guy in this. You don't.
Well,
Uh,
don't give too much away, Dana.
and I won't give too much. I just want to say that so you'll be prepared for that, but I don't want to completely describe it. Um, but very fun movie. I would recommend that everybody go out there and watch it.
Yeah, and I was, like I seen this movie when it first came out, and so like as soon as it was released on DVD, which I believe it went direct to DVD, if I'm not mistaken. This didn't get any kind of a theatrical release, at least to my knowledge. But like I said, whenever I think of Robert Englund roles outside of the Nightmare films, this is always one of the first ones I think of now.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed him so much in that role as Mayor Buckman. So when I heard back in the day that they were doing a sequel to this, and Lynn Shay was already attached to it, I was like, oh, come on, they got to get Robert Englund. They got to bring him back
Yeah.
because I want to see more of that character. Well, they did bring that character back, but like I said earlier, Robert Englund did not reprise the role. It was Bill Moseley.
And
Uh,
I love Bill Moseley, but oh, why would you do that? You
yeah,
know.
I love Bill Moseley too, but he did not do justice to the role like Robert Englund did. And not a big fan of the sequel of this, but so I just suggest if you've never seen this, I mean, you can do whatever you want to, but like if you've never seen this, just watch this one and just don't bother with
Forget
this.
about the sequel.
But if you're curious, go ahead and watch them too. You may have a different opinion than what I do.
So I wanted to bring up a couple of people that one shows up quite a bit more than the other, but Kane Hodder is in this.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
blink and you'll miss him, but he is there.
He's in it more towards the end. Because he doesn't get a pretty close up shot with one of the other characters in it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I actually forgot that he was in it until you just mentioned it. And I was like, oh yeah, he's in that part in the end.
Yeah. And I love the look that I'm just gonna say I love the look Kane Hodder has.
Mm-hmm.
And also, let me ask Chris this. Chris, do you know how this has a connection with Evil Dead?
Honestly, no.
Trivia time. Okay, so Scott Spiegel, who was a buddy of Sam Raimi's and Bruce Campbell and all
Okay.
those guys, did I believe help write this, and he was also in it as one of uh, the guys that go around playing the guitars and singing. There's an old guy, and then there's a middle aged guy. Well, the middle aged guy is Scott Spiegel. Uh,
Okay.
and so that's my connection
See,
with
I knew I didn't realize that he worked on this, but Scott Spiegel, like I don't even know what he looks like. I've never seen a picture of him before, but I knew that he was associated with the Evil Dead films. I think did he just work on Evil Dead 2 or did he work on the original as well?
I think he may have worked on the original in a small capacity, but he worked quite a bit on Evil Dead too.
Yeah.
Scott Spiegel also did Intruder. If anybody's ever seen Intruder, the movie where the night crew of a
Grocery
supermarket
store.
they're getting killed off.
Yeah.
That's a fun movie too, and you talk about some gory
And
kills.
Raimi and Bruce Campbell are both in that one.
And
And Danny Hicks, I think, is in that one.
Ted's in there as Produce Joe, and
Yeah. So a lot of Raimi people's in that one.
there most definitely is. Um, and Scott Spiegel was also friends with Quentin Tarantino and Eli Roth,
Mm,
which kind of explains why he was associated with a lot of movies that Eli Roth had something to do with at one point or another. Um, so, um, Chris, do you want to give your rating for 2001 Maniacs?
let's see. I'm gonna be generous, and because where I do really like this movie a lot, and like I said, it's one of the first non-Nightmare on Elm Street films I think of when it comes to Robert Englund. Um, I'd give this movie a 4 probably.
Okay, so Chris gives it a 4 deadites out of 5. I'm going to go up one, and Chris is going to be really shocked because I'm going to give this one 5 deadites out of 5 because
I'm glad that you really liked this
I
that
had a
movie that much.
lot of
Um,
this one.
yeah, I think when I discovered this film, I think my friend Justin Owens, was the one that told me about this movie originally, because he is a huge Robert Englund fan as well. So he was everything that Robert Englund he came out with. Justin would always watch it, and I think Justin ended up getting a Freddy Krueger portrait tattoo on him somewhere.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, this movie's so awesome. I mean, I like a lot of the cast in it. I think a lot of the characters are very likable and fun.
yeah.
Um, there wasn't really anybody in the cast that had a character that I was like, oh, I could have done without that, and or I just really disliked something about them. No, I think everybody that did really well. The ones that were portrayed
Mm,
more so than others did a good job into making you interested in the story. I think it's definitely interesting to see the characters that like Robert Englund and Lynn Shay play because you've never really seen them play characters like that before or since that film. Um, so yeah, if you're a fan of any of those people we mentioned that's involved in this, even if you're a hardcore Kane Hodder fan, you got to see his little cameo in there.
right.
It's worth it, I think, to for that because it's just the movie overall is just so fun. And I know I keep saying that, but that's
No,
just
it's the truth. It
I
is.
really don't know any other way how to describe it, but it's just I feel like if you're looking to watch a Robert Englund film that you've never seen before, and you're wanting to sit and have fun with a movie to where you're just like it's not one of those things where you have to overthink about what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I recommend checking out this movie for sure.
Yeah. So me and Chris we were almost even on that one. He gave it a 4, I gave it a 5, but I think
Mhm.
that evens out in the end. I say go. I mean, don't go out and buy it. I'm going to buy it now because I can see myself watching that one again. Otherwise, I wouldn't, go out and purchase it.
I'll
Uh,
be right back, Dana.
okay. Um, well, I don't really want to talk too much about Hatchet until Chris gets back, but I will read your comment, Batman. You said the Pez dispenser kill from Hatchet really awed me. Yeah, that is probably my favorite kill in the whole entire movie. Is that Pez dispenser kill? That's a perfect way to describe it too, Batman. Um, but I hope everybody had a great Tuesday. Um, and I did today. Today went pretty good for me as far as work and all that. Chris is back now. Um, so we're gonna shortly here be talking about Hatchet.
Mhm.
But did you go and get something,
I
Chris?
did, and I was going to cause since you didn't have, I was going to show everybody what the DVD looked like
Oh,
if we're looking at
awesome!
Maniacs,
Yeah,
and
cool.
I was looking at it, and the guy that I was talking about earlier, Madman Pondo, he's actually on the cover of the DVD right here. I don't know if you probably can't see it because of the lighting. Yeah, well, he's right here.
You can see him a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, my light's in the way, so sorry about that. But yeah, I just got the DVD of that. But I also went and picked up this too out of my room because we're getting ready to talk about Hatchet. So I guess I would show my Victor Crowley.
Cool.
If you could let
That's
me see if I can hold on. Me minimize this screen because I think that's what. Yeah,
There you go.
you kind of see that. Sorry, I have a
I
really
can
bad
see his
lighting in
face,
here.
stuff like that. That's pretty cool.
But yeah, I mean, if you want, we want to go ahead and start talking about Hatchet, or if you wanted to mention something else, Dana, go ahead.
Uh, no, we can. I just wanted to acknowledge that Coco's in here. She says Hatchet is the snit. But she says not watched them in a decade though. So, well, Coco, I'm glad you stopped by to join us for this. I was really excited about talking about these movies tonight. But Chris, did you want to talk about Hatchet first, or did you want me to start?
You can go ahead.
You try not to curse, and you say, "Hey, dudes." Well, you can curse a little bit in here, Coco. I mean, we do from time to time. So I'm not going to say that nobody can say curse words in here. Um, but yeah, we're going to talk about Hatchet. Yeah, again, I stole this off of Steve's DVD shelf. The unrated director's cut of Hatchet. And this is the one where I've changed my mind a little bit on it. And Chris is probably going to be shocked. Some of you in the chat are going to be shocked that I actually enjoyed it this time, with a couple of exceptions. Those couple of exceptions mean those stupid chicks that keep showing their boobs all the time. I could do without them. They could have got killed off way earlier than they did, and I wouldn't have missed them.
Well, I felt like that was an obvious thing that had to be included in this because this is Adam Green
Right.
that did this film. He's a huge horror fan before he even became a filmmaker, and it had been his like dream since he was a kid to make a horror movie that was like a slasher movie.
Mhm.
Um, and so he comes into making this film with he's got several people from slasher films from the past included in it. So I
Yeah.
feel like the whole thing with the ditzy girls.
Mm.
I think the one is played by Mercedes McNabb, which she's a regular on Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series, and believe she also played the little girl on the Addams Family movies. Like she was the Girl
Yeah.
Scout girl in the first one, and then she was like the real snotty, preppy girl in Addams Family Values at the summer camp that Wednesday and Pugsley went to.
Yeah.
Uh,
Batman says the blonde girl's the little girl from the Addams Family movie.
yeah, Mercedes McNabb, and yeah, like they do that couple things where they show their boobs and stuff like that. But I'm like, you know, and while that would bother some people, that's just a popular trope that a lot of slasher films have used throughout the years, and that's ultimately what Adam Green was doing, is because he wanted that to be a big like tribute to 80s slashers.
I guess maybe showing the boobs wasn't quite as annoying as did did you ever think at any point that they were a little bit too dumb, Chris?
Well, I think that was another point too, is because because
Making them over.
there's always this characters in like that are always real dumb acting, and they're for sure going to be killed off at some point in the film. Um, I don't
But
know.
Adam Green hung on to them too long. They should have been killed off earlier, I think. But that's just my opinion. But I didn't dislike the movie like I did the first time I watched it. And it's been years, honestly, since I watched it last. I liked Kane Hodder's portrayal of both Victor Crowley and also the father of Victor Crowley. So he played both roles. The grown Victor Crowley, and he also played the father of Victor Crowley. And I thought it was genius on Adam Green's part to have Kane Hodder do that,
Mhm.
because there's something about Kane Hodder when he's out of like Jason makeup and a Jason mask or any other kind of creature mask that he might have on, because Kane Hodder has a human quality and it's all in his eyes. I mean, I know he is a human being, but I'm just saying he's played creatures, monsters, zombie like creatures coming out of the lake with Jason Voorhees, And you don't get to see him playing just a person. So when you see him in those couple, two, three scenes where he's playing Victor Crowley's father,
Mhm.
there's a sadness in his eyes
Yeah.
that I don't see very often in Kane Hodder when he's acting. And I just was like, this is a man within this movie that really cares about his son. It doesn't matter that his son is disfigured. It doesn't matter that his son doesn't look like other kids. He loves him because he's his son. He doesn't turn away from him. He takes care of him the best way he can. And I saw all of that in Kane Hodder's eyes in this movie. And I think that's a credit to Adam Green as well as a credit to Kane Hodder for being able to play Victor Crowley's father so well. And Tony Todd as Reverend Zombie. Yes, we do get to see Tony Todd in this film as well. And TJ says the Ditzy Girls were a parody of those Girls Gone Wild videos.
Yeah, I can see that.
They had
Uh,
to be annoying and topless.
because the guy that was filming on the Shapiro guy, um, he was. I mean, they kind of allude to that because when they're like going through his wallet or whatever, they find like his ID, and
Yeah.
he actually has a different name, and then he has like the little business card in there that says Mike Shapiro, and he's like a some kind of like an adult filmmaker or
Yeah,
something like that.
it had actually like shadows of naked chicks on the business card.
Yeah,
Yes. And he had a hell of a collection of business cards too in his wallet. He had them for just about everything. Blissful says if you're going to be annoying, be topless.
yeah. I
Yeah, I
mean,
guess it kind of takes the edge off the
that's a
annoying
good
part.
point. Like um, and much as I love Linnea Quigley, I gotta say there's some roles that she's done in the past where they're super annoying characters, but then you're like, she gets topless in the film. Right? Like, oh, I'll let it pass.
Forgive it. Uh, But I highly respect women like Linnea Quigley and Brink Stevens and even Michelle Bauer. Even though I haven't ever met Michelle Bauer, I've met Linnea Quigley, met Brink Stevens, and I loved them both. They were just as sweet as could be.
Yeah, they're all three of those ladies are very nice. But I have to say that Michelle Bauer is one of the nicest um, people I've ever met as far as celebrities at a convention.
Well, I love Brink Stevens so much and Linnea Quigley so much that I have a dog now that her name is Brink. Me
Right.
and Steve named her after Brink Stevens. Linnea, I got Linnea. Linnea sadly has since passed away, but I got Linnea when I was still living with my parents, just before me and Steve got married. And she, of course, was named after Linnea Quigley. And when I met Linnea Quigley, I told her I named my dog after her. And she thought that was nice. I wish I had had a picture of Linnea to show her, like on my phone or something. But
But that filmmaker, the adult filmmaker, I called him Mike Shapiro, but I messed up. His name in the film was Doug Shapiro.
Doug,
And
that's
that
why, because those girls said, "Where's Doug at?"
Yeah, he's portrayed by Joel Murray, who is actually there's a convention coming up a couple months in somewhere in Tennessee, and I think it's called Smoky Mountain Fan Fest, and I know he's going to be at that convention. Um, but he plays in a TV show that I'm a big fan of that went for like 11 or 12 seasons, called Shameless,
Uh,
and he's in the first few seasons, and then his character is no longer on the show after the first few seasons. But I know him some other things too, um, but I just can't think of anything right off what they are.
so in essence, I enjoyed the movie this time around. I enjoyed the character of Victor Crowley. I liked watching Kane Hodder do the dual role, and I haven't even gotten to Robert Englund yet. Now, Robert Englund is only in the beginning scenes with Joshua Leonard playing his son, I believe, and I guess they're trying to get a gator in the swamps.
Yeah, yeah, that's what they were doing. Because they normally would go hunt. I think the character Mary Beth alludes to that like sometime later in the film.
Hmm. Yeah, I did like if I had my favorite woman character in this, Mary Beth's would be the one. Because she did a couple of stupid things, but for the most part, she was resourceful in the movie, I think.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, Robert Englund was great in it in the first few scenes. I liked his interaction with Joshua Leonard in this, and Joshua Leonard was funny too because he had to take a piss, then he had to they had to pull the boat up to the land, and he had to go pee, and Robert Englund he said Ainsley something about he. I can't remember exactly how he said it, but he said he's got to go squat to pee in the woods. He can't pee like a man, basically. Um, and this movie kind of is a little un-PC too. If you
Yeah.
think about some of the things that are mentioned, which I'm not going to mention those things either, because not really that I think it'll get me canceled, but I don't want people to think I'm talking out of, you know, I don't want them to take it out of context.
Yeah, Batman nerd. I believe that's what she's talking about, but I don't think we're not gonna mention that on
I'm
here.
just going to be safe. Y'all can put it in the chat, but I'm going to be safe and just not say that word. Um, Blissful says she loves that show. She's probably talking about Shameless.
Yeah, yeah, I think that she was talking about that. But let me ask you a question, Dana. Like,
Uh-huh.
so I thought that the Tamara Feldman in this, who played Mary Beth, I thought she did a really good job, in that character. And I would have, as much as I love Danielle Harris, I would have preferred Tamara Feldman to have returned in the sequels as
Mm.
Mary Beth. Um, and because I don't know, there's just something about the way Danielle Harris portrayed him that it made me not like that character as much. I like all of the Hatchet films, honestly. But I just feel like the first one is the best one that they put out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember if I tried watching. I think I was so disappointed by this one originally that I just didn't even follow along with the others. But I have kind of changed my spots on this movie, and I've kind of changed how I feel about Adam Green. Just like I changed over time with Eli Roth. I still don't like everything Eli Roth has directed
Mm-hmm.
by any stretch of the imagination. I like Thanksgiving. Well, in fact, I love Thanksgiving, and I like Cabin Fever. But
I've
as far
still
as
not
Eli
watched it.
Roth, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, no, go ahead, Chris.
I was just saying I've still not watched Thanksgiving as of yet, but everything I've heard about it has been good. So, yeah.
I think you will like it. I would like to say I
Well,
think you would like it,
I
Chris.
would love to check it out, and I had planned to, it's on Netflix. But I think I told you before, like, so the current plan we're on is the Netflix that has ads,
Yeah.
and um, they have specific things on Netflix now. If you have that plan with the ads, which is a cheaper plan, that's why we went with it. And we don't care if we watch ads or not when we watch stuff. Um, but they won't let you watch specific things on Netflix if you're on that plan, and Thanksgiving is one of them.
I wonder if Steve knows that because he just dropped us down to that plan.
Yeah, because it's very like frustrating because like we had dropped down to that plan right around the same time that they had put Thanksgiving on there, and I went to watch it. I was like, it won't let me watch it.
Uh,
So I was like, well, I don't want to change this plan back and play more for me when we just, downgraded. So I said, I'll watch it eventually. I'll find it on some platform to watch.
yeah, I hate that. I bet Steve doesn't know that because he might, since he got the new job, he might bump us back up to the stuff without ads. I think he was trying to economize a little bit at one time, and he did that. So,
Well, with that movie in particular, Thanksgiving, I think that it will be on other streaming platforms at some point soon. I mean, the movie's been out quite a while now, so
mm,
I think it may get to that where they shop it around and get it on other streaming services besides Netflix.
yeah, I don't know. Do y'all have Shutter or anything like that?
Oh, we have Shutter, we have Amazon Prime, Hulu, Max,
Yeah,
Paramount Plus. We got a lot of different ones.
maybe they'll put it on Shutter at some point.
Yeah, maybe.
Or Amazon Prime. That would be another good option, I
Yeah,
think.
I know they've been putting stuff out on some of the like they put the first Omen is on
Mhm.
Hulu right now.
Right,
If anybody wants to watch that, and trying to think I don't think anything else new recently has come to any streaming services as far as horror related, but that's the only one I can think of. Is like the first Omen was put on Hulu recently.
right. Um, Chris, now you're welcome to go over your thoughts on Hatchet. I'm going to step away for just a second uh, to, of course, run the restroom and get me a refresher on my Mountain Dew.
Okay.
Um, but I'm going to take myself out of the stream for just a sec. I'll be right back.
Yeah, so I guess I can talk a little bit about the cast of Hatchet while Dana's gone. I I thought it was a very interesting and diverse cast that they have here. One being the character of Ben, which is played by Joel David Moore. Um, at the last Horror Hound convention I went to, he was a guest, and Adam Green was there, and Kane Hodder. I think that's the only people that were there from Hatchet, and they actually did a Q&A that we watched right on at the end of, because the Q&A following up to the Hatchet one was the Reanimator one, and that's where we were just coming in to sit down for that. But from what I seen that Joel David Moore, he was really like happy to be there. He was doing a lot of recording on his phone and taking pictures of the crowd, and just like he seemed really excited to be there amongst people that were fans of the film. But I always thought it was super interesting that he was chosen as the lead for Hatchet when he was primarily known in comedy roles like Dodgeball and Grandma's Boy. And I think there was a lot of people that I had spoke to, just kind of having random conversations with other fans at that Horror Hound, and a lot of people that I spoke to that when he came up is they were there to meet him for Grandma's Boy, which is it's a hilarious movie, and he does play hilarious role in that one where he plays the role of JP, who is like the um I guess the CEO or whatever of that gaming company where they're making this video game, and they make all these jokes about him like he's like a part of he's Neo from the Matrix and all this other stuff. Um, but so cool to see him in that role and is in a horror film. in a lead role. Because he's definitely not somebody you would think would be a leading role in a horror film like that. But he did a really good job in this. I think you know he did a convincing part of like when because it's basically throughout the whole film. They're when see Victor Crowley and he's chasing them throughout the swamps and all that whole surroundings in that area. Um, it's basically a chase throughout the filming, like because they start out as a big group of people on this like boating trip, and it's just they're kind of picked off one by one. It follows that formula, that typical slasher formula, but that's what I loved about it because you see Adam Green, who put this film together, being a huge fan of horror growing up and slashers in general, and he's finally getting to make this film that he's always dreamed of. As a tribute to the '80s slashers, and then he gets to work with people like Robert Englund and Kane Hodder and Tony Todd, and you know uh, several other, even like Dana mentioned, Joshua Leonard, which is not he's not known for slasher films, but he is known for one of the more popular horror films from the '90s, and were in the Blair Witch Project.
Yep.
And he was actually another guest that was at this past Horror Hound as well, because they did a whole Blair Witch Project thing at that. But like I was saying, the whole cast in this is really diverse, and there's so many people in it that I recognize from so much other stuff. Of course, Kane Hodder. We know him from so many horror films, including the Friday the 13th films, and
Mhm.
he's had a lot of cameos in films like Wishmaster and Ghoulies 3, and he was like the stunt coordinator for some of the House films, and he's even in House 4. Kane plays a possessed pizza. So you see this face coming up through this pizza in House 4, and that's Kane Hodder's face.
Yeah.
Um, but I mentioned Joel David Moore. We know him primarily from like comedy films. Dion Richmond, who plays Marcus. Now I knew Dion Richmond is playing Kenny on the Cosby Show, which was Rudy's friend.
That's right. Yeah.
And, I think it was his name was Kenny, but Rudy always called him Bud.
Yeah. She renamed him Bud.
Yeah, Bud, and like I said, Mercedes McNabb is in this. I know her from the Buffy TV series, and she plays that annoying girl in this named Misty. Pari Shin. Now, I knew Pari Shin before I seen Hatchet in a movie called The New Guy. And that stars DJ Qualls and it has Eddie Griffin in it. And me and Candace just watched it a few nights ago again. Well, I was watching it, and then Candace comes and she's, "What are you watching?" I was like, "The New Guy," and it's a really funny film. I like it. I mentioned Joel Murray earlier that plays Doug Shapiro. I know him from like Shameless and some other stuff, but I'm not like super sure what he's in, but I know him from other things. Richard Reel, who plays Jim in this. Now, I also know him from. I know he's in Office Space for sure, but
Mhm.
I think he's been in a lot of like TV stuff too. And of course, I can't talk about the cast and if I without talking about Robert Englund,
Yeah.
and he just has a small role in this, and he plays Mary Beth's dad. He's because you see him in pretty much the epilogue of the film, or not epilogue, but I guess the prologue of the
Mhm.
film. And when I see him in this, when I originally watched this, I was hoping he would have had more of a larger part, which that character is seen again later in the film, but it's just you don't really recognize him, but because of a particular reason. Um, but like I said, Tony Todd is in this. He has a very small part in the beginning as well. But that character he plays, Reverend Zombie, does come back in one of the later films. I think if I'm either Hatchet 2 or Hatchet 3, he has more of a prominent part in one of those. Um, and then Adam Green, the director, he's also in the film in a role
Yeah.
early on when they're walking through the streets of New Orleans for Mardi Gras and all that. And he's plays one of Ben's friends, Ben and Marcus's friends, and Ben is like, well, I'm gonna go, and this ain't for me. I'm gonna go off, and then you see Adam Green and the other guys, or they're like, come on, man, like this is what we're here for, blah, 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 whatever. Um, but yeah, just so many like different um actors in this that you've not really seen them work with one another in the past, and but you kind of like them from several different things in the past. And the whole Hatchet series is kind of like that.
Uh-huh.
Because like they bring a lot more like horror known genre actors into the later Hatchet films, like um, R.A. Maheloff, who played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Zach Galligan from Gremlins is in Hatchet 3. Um, there's Felissa Rose is in, I believe, Victor Crowley. There's just a ton of different actors like that from the horror genre, and that's one of the things that always kind of piqued my interest about these films. They're not for everybody, but I just enjoy them because you're seeing a lot of these familiar faces in the films, and it's always fun. It's like, and you're not, if you wasn't like aware that they were even going to be in the film, but when you see them, like, oh, that's cool that they're in
It's
this.
kind of like Where's Waldo for horror icons.
Right, exactly. That's a excellent you know excellent way of putting it, Dane, I guess you could say.
Oh, yes, that's right, Batman. I'm glad you reminded me of that. A cameo with John Carl Beekler.
Oh yeah, he plays the guy that's trying to tell him to like get out of there. He's in the
Him playing
boat.
the crazy Ralph character. You're doomed. You're going to die.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he's like the crazy Ralph character.
Yeah, so you definitely do have a lot of the hallmarks of 80s slasher films. That is one thing that Adam Green, if you could say one thing that Adam Green did right with this, it was by putting all those tropes or whatever you want to call it from
Well, it just
80s
shows
slasher.
that he's a fan. That
Yeah,
he
exactly.
ultimately, in the end, he is a huge fan of this, and that's what he wanted. He wanted to include all those people in there and have all those different tropes of a slasher film in there. And I think if we a lot of fans, like ourselves, had that kind of money and time and patience and knowledge of everything within that industry to make our own, we would that's what we would do as well. That's what
Oh my
we would do.
gosh, yes, that would be a dream come true. That'd be a dream
So
project.
that's why I'm like really like I appreciate Adam Green for what he does and stuff, because like I said, he's a fan, just like all of us. And if you've ever talked to him at a convention, he's just like a normal guy. He will talk to you like he's like just like a fan at that convention, but you're just kind of paying to see him, but he'll stand there and talk to you like you've known him, for several years. He's a really cool guy.
And see, I've come to discover, I talked about Eli Roth and how I was never a big fan of Eli Roth, like not just his directing of movies, but him as a person. My first impression of Eli Roth was he's the cocky type of fan, the
Mhm.
fan that I don't really much care for. But I'll tell you what changed my mind, Chris, about Eli Roth was when Joe Bob had him on
Yeah,
the last drive-in. That really changed my perception of Eli.
it did me too, actually, from that same thing. Now I always liked, like I said, I always liked his characters, his roles inside of film, whether he was directing that film or if he was just did doing it to be in the movie, um, for as a favor for another filmmaker or something like
Right.
that. But as far as like his directing and everything, like I've never been much on it, but I look at what when he was on the last drive-in with Joe Bob and the way he talked and everything, it made me have a lot more respect for him. Um, as because I know he's a fan as well,
Right.
and so I looked at him more in the light as what I do Adam Green, as I do Adam Green. So I appreciate that. And I think somebody's at my door. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, Batman, you are right. A slasher horror movie made by a fan to the fans. It is almost like a love letter to slasher fans. And that's why I was so disappointed that I didn't like Hatchet as well the first time around. Candace, you're at the door. I, for some reason, I thought it might be you. Your dogs go crazy just like mine do. Only it's not. They don't make as much noise. I have 5 dogs, and you guys have 2. So, but but yeah, Hatchet. I mean, I have I guess, a newfound respect for Hatchet. Oh, and Ice Ice Booey, I wanted to say hey to you. I did see you come in, and it's good to see you again. Hadn't seen you for a while. Oh, food run. Yes, that's definitely important. I was stuffing my face a little earlier eating key lime pie, so I know how that is. But
Sorry
oh,
about that.
did you get some food? Because Candace said it was her at the door, and she
Yeah,
said about a food run.
she brought me some. I told her just to stick it in the microwave for me, and I'll get it here in a little bit.
So, did you want to give your rating, Chris, on Hatchet, or is there anything else you wanted to say about it
Yeah,
before we
I'll talk a little bit more about it because there
go?
was just some stuff I wanted to talk about, but I didn't get to cover it because I went over the cast, and that was one of the main things I wanted to talk about was the cast in this, and just like how it's really cool to see a lot of different people in it that I
Your
recognize.
your brother-in-law's in here too now, Chris.
Yeah, he loves me and him. We've had big Hatchet movie marathons before because me and him both love them the same, I think. And but another one of the things that I want to talk about though about the Hatchet films, I guess in general, not just this one, um, but is they really went up a notch on as far as the kill scenes because there was a lot of stuff that was kind of tributes in there to former like or from past horror films. Like there's kind of the sleeping bag kill that Jason does in Friday the 13th Part 7. It's kind of put in there as well towards the end. And but the one of the ones to me is like when he like runs out when you first see Victor Crowley and he runs out towards them and he catches the one lady that I think is Jim's wife. I think what was her name? Let me see here. Um, Shannon. So
Mm.
the when he catches Shannon and he just kind of just pulls
That
her
is I think
head
that's my
apart.
favorite kill in the whole entire movie is that one.
It's so wild. And then but just the effects in general with this, like when it's with the kill scenes or just the way they're like they're distributing like the blood spurts and stuff in different parts of the film. Like it's really looks really good. And I want to say I'm not sure who helped with the effects on this. I want to say since John Carl Beekler was in the film, that he had some kind of hand in that. Um, but I just felt like it was
Yeah, he did. Special makeup effects are by Beekler.
the effects were really well done. And John Carl Beekler, I have met. He's passed away now, but I have met him several times in the past, and he was always a super cool guy. Pretty much everything he ever worked on, effects wise, I loved it. He also directed Friday the 13th Part 7.
Yes, he did.
And I think he did work on like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. He did a lot of work on like the Ghoulies films and Troll and just all kinds of stuff. A lot of Charles Band stuff, I believe. He worked on, but he was probably always, Tom Savini is probably my favorite effects guy of all time, but John Carl Beekler is definitely up there with him in that, in the running for that. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to mention about that is Hatchet. Is like the effects is really cool. But one big thing that still bothers me after many times that I've seen Hatchet is the music, and the score of the film is the only thing that bothers me really about the movie, because it's so cheesy. If
Yeah,
I don't know if you paid much attention to that when you're watching it again, Dana, but the score in this is just so cheesy.
yeah, I did notice it now that you bring that up.
But I feel like that was done on purpose. Another thing that Adam Green did, because he wanted to also give it that cheesy 80s feel, and he didn't want to put in too much modern music. Now, I
Right.
believe there is a Marilyn Manson song that's played in the beginning of the film, but I think that's probably the only modern like music song that they use.
What was the song over the end credits? Do you
Oh,
remember?
there's that, and there's that one too. I can't remember what it was now. Now that you mentioned, I do remember they're playing something in the end, but I
Mhm.
can't remember what it was. Let me see if I can look it up here real quick, and because I've got the IMDb page pulled up here. I don't know if do they show like the songs that were included on IMDb or not.
I think because I was trying to get it done, I don't think I watched all the credits, but I don't know about IMDb if it shows.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's something. I mean, it's definitely a modern song as well. Or
Oh,
for that
okay.
modern at that time, but yeah.
Batman says MM song was "This Is the New Shit."
Yeah, that's the song that they play in the beginning of the film when they're like, they're painting across like the streets of New Orleans for Mardi Gras. Yeah,
But
but I guess I'll go ahead and give my
yeah,
rating
I was going to say, I guess we'll go ahead and give our rating. So we'll let Chris give his rating first.
for Hatchet. Like I said, I really do like this movie a lot. I would probably give it a little bit lower than what I give 2001 Maniacs, because I do enjoy that movie a little bit more than Hatchet, and so I would give Hatchet a 3.
Okay. Well, you and I are going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to just leave that three up there because that's what I was going to give it. But had you asked me this several years ago when I watched it the first time around,
Mhm.
I probably would have gave it a one or a two.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that still feel that way too. But that's absolutely their right to feel that way. Um, to me, I don't know, I think that's the beautiful thing about being a fan of films is
Mhm.
that there's always going to be a big difference between different people that have seen that film, like and how they perceive it, and there's going to be things that some people don't like about the film, but another person could be the complete opposite and actually like that part of it. Like one of the things that stands out to me the most about this film and the other Hatchet films is that, like I said earlier, is the throwbacks to all the things from the 80s, like horror films, and then you have these actors who were a part of those 80s horror films that are coming into new roles, and And I love, and I know you mentioned it earlier, but I love the dual role of Kane Hodder as well, and the Victor Crowley, and also Victor Crowley's daddy. And it's that's something I was going to mention too, but you did that already, and that's that Kane Hodder, when you see him getting emotional and he's crying and he has that sadness over him, like that was probably the first time I'd ever seen a Kane Hodder role where he is, he's acting in that fashion. Um, so really impressive, and I thought that was a really good, decision to put him to have played just himself as Victor Crowley's dad. Um, and yeah, I mean, I really really like this movie.
CJ gives it a 3.5. He said it's definitely a 3.5 in my book.
Yeah, I would even say that. I could say that too. I mean, three to 3.5. But I have to kind of have it rated a little bit lower than 2001 Maniacs. So because I enjoy that movie more.
Right. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed 2001 Maniacs. I've got I want to go watch it again already. That's how much fun I had
Mhm.
with that movie. I don't think I'll ever get bored with that one. Um, so I guess we'll talk about the last one, which this was a first time watch for me too. I had heard of Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon for years and years and years. I just never got around to watching it. And I was actually pleasantly surprised by this one. And this has some genre people in it, not just Robert Englund. Zelda Rubinstein's in this. Um,
Scott Wilson.
Scott Wilson is in it. For those of you that watch the Walking Dead
Mhm.
show, and that's actually speaking of Scott Wilson, when the character of Herschel got killed off on The Walking Dead. Big spoiler there for those of you that didn't watch the early Walking Dead shows. But after they killed him off, I tuned out of
Yeah, that was around the time I started tuning out as well because Herschel was one of my favorite characters on there. And then after that, I was like, I'm not
I
because every time I would get attached to a character on there, they would kill them off. Like one of the earlier characters on the show, which was Dale,
Yeah,
and
Jeffrey DeMunn's character. Yeah,
yeah they
I really like Dale too.
yeah they killed him off in the second season. I'm like, but I think the reason they did that is because where he had loyalty to Frank Darabont, and they knew that Frank Darabont was leaving, or basically had already been fired at that point
Yeah.
before all the show had even aired of season two. So AMC fired Frank Darabont from The Walking Dead, and honestly, after Frank Darabont left the show,
I think it went downhill. Yeah,
that's when it started going downhill.
the demise started after Frank. Because I'm sorry, no matter what you might think of Frank Darabont, I feel like Frank Darabont's irreplaceable. No matter who you put in there after Frank
Like,
Darabont, it's
yeah.
going to be a huge step down.
Can you think of anything that Frank Darabont has put out that that you didn't like?
No, not even The Mist.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Shawshank Redemption is probably one of the greatest films ever made,
Oh, that's got to be one of the greatest prison movies and maybe one of the greatest films ever made.
and
Is
The Green Mile as well.
Green Mile.
Also up there. I like Shawshank Redemption a little bit more than The Green Mile, but man, those two are some of the best ever made.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. Um, but somebody else that I want to talk about with Behind the Mask. that I really got into the character, and I think he played it very well. And that was the title character of Leslie Vernon, played
Mhm.
by this is it Nathan Basil? Is that
Yeah,
who
and I
that
believe
is?
this is his first film because in the opening credits of the movie, it says introducing Nathan Basil, and usually when they put that introducing, that means it's like that's their first film. From what I've gathered in the past from seeing people that first film, they would use that credit as introducing so and so, and man, for this to be this guy's first film, what
Mhm.
a fantastic job he did.
Yeah, what a fantastic introduction to somebody is in the way that he took on this character. I like the way he approached it.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, some of the credit maybe could go to the director, but I think ultimately it's the actor themselves that really shines or doesn't shine if they don't do a good job and we can't believe in that character. And I believed in the character of Leslie Vernon.
Yeah, and it's so wild because like it's you got this documentary crew that's following him and
First, I was like, I had a hard time wrapping my head around that concept. But as the movie went on, I was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm getting
it
into
starts
it.
making more sense as to
Yeah.
what's actually going on. And that's why because the first time I ever watched this too, I was kind of like on the fence about it but as it started progressing more and more throughout the film, I was like, oh, okay, I think I know what's going on here. And you just and also I love Robert Englund is like his scene is like he calls him his Ahab is what
Yeah.
he calls him in the
But
film.
he's like Donald Pleasance in the Halloween.
Yeah, he's like Donald Pleasance in the Halloween films. That's a pretty much I think that's the main inspiration for
Mhm.
his character of Halloran, I think his name is in the
Yeah,
film.
Dr. Halloran. Yeah.
And so you can because he wears the trench coat and everything, and he kind of has like a limp
And
as
even the
well.
way he points the gun and
Yeah,
stuff. I mean, it's Donald Pleasance all the way, and Robert Englund had that down pat in this.
and another thing, like I because they talk about this in the like the opening of the film when the girl that's doing the narrating. Um, so he's like this new age killer that they're covering of Leslie Vernon, but they before mentioning him, they're talking about Jason Voorhees and Camp Crystal Lake. They're talking about Freddy Krueger
And did
and
you love the Kane Hodder cameo? He's going inside the Nightmare on Elm Street.
yeah, because it says like Elm Street resident or something like that, and he's like
He
looking
just goes
behind
in there and shuts the door.
because they say something, and when she's narrating, she says he's supposed to be like a previous neighbor of
No,
Fred
they
Krueger.
were they were wanting to know, how do you feel about living next door to Fred Krueger, and he just
Yeah,
shuts the door.
and then at this time when this movie came out, Freddy versus Jason had already came out. I'm pretty sure. I think it might have been the same year, honestly. Because what did this come out? No, this actually came out in 2006. Freddy
Yeah,
vs. Jason came out in 2003. Um, so within Freddy versus Jason, we knew that the Freddy and Jason characters were living within the same universe. But in this one, it's like because they mentioned Jason, they mentioned Freddy, then they talk about Michael Myers,
yeah.
and at some point later in the film, when she's talking to Leslie Vernon and she's interviewing him on camera, he mentions Chucky, and so it's just interesting that like this is probably one of the only films where like like it's a documentary too to beat off, so it's like it's
Yeah.
as if it feels like it's something within real life, and they're making as if these characters are actually real and they're all within that same universe as
Mhm.
him. And as the film goes on, he kind of like is talking about these different like the formula of what these killers do, and they have like the final girl and everything. They allude to all of that stuff,
Yeah.
and it's as if it's just something that all of these different killers do. Like it's just like as if they went through like a school or something to learn these habits. And it kind of goes into that when you meet Scott Wilson's character.
Exactly. And they talk about the act of killing people or killing multiple
Yeah,
people like it's I'm going to the office. Like, honey, I'm going to the office. Okay. Uh, and they go and kill a few people and they come home. It's like, how was your day? Oh, I slayed 5 today. They didn't say that in the movie, but that's what it was like. They were so calm, like it was normal behavior for people to go out and massacre people and then come home and have dinner.
right.
It was and and at first I was like, What in the world?" And then I was like, "Oh, I get what they're trying to do with this." It just took me a little bit to
Yeah.
get behind it. And Batman says the lead girl is Kevin McAllister's sister from Home Alone, and I thought she looked familiar.
Is it now? I know that's the girl from Home Alone, but I always thought that was just his cousin, Kevin's cousin in Home, because
Is he? I wonder if he's talking because thought he was talking about the blonde girl that was Lenny. Is that the
yeah,
one you're
it
talking about?
is. That's her, but I thought that was Kevin's cousin because Kevin in Home Alone he had a brother Buzz, and I believe he had a sister that had black hair. She was like the one that was doing like the head count
Well,
outside.
I think she was his cousin. The older
Oh,
girl
she
with the
was
dark hair, yeah, she was
okay.
his
Well,
cousin.
so maybe Buzz was like the only sibling he had because those other ones I think were just his cousins too.
Well, I think Lenny and one of the other girls were his
Oh well,
sisters.
then maybe I'm wrong.
When
Uh,
they come home at the end and you see all the kids and the mom and dad together.
it just gets confusing, Dana,
Yeah,
because
it does.
there's like 10 kids in that movie. Like you don't know who belongs to who. They don't really establish that much in Home Alone. But anyway, we're not talking about Home Alone.
No, Batman, you got us off on the Home Alone track now. But Batman also says it's a shame that we aren't going to get the sequel except in comic book form.
Yeah, they were. I mean, they're doing that. But there for years they had talked about doing a follow up to this as a sequel to the film, and I remember Nathan Basil being in a horror hound several years ago after the film was released, and he was even talking about it there. They were trying they couldn't get they couldn't agree on a script. Um, Several people were joining to work on it, and then they would drop out. I just never could get anything to work. Um, so I love this film. I really do. Like this out of the 3 we're talking about tonight, this is my absolute favorite of the 3. And I've watched it I don't know how many times, and I've always whenever I talk about newer horror films from the 2000s. This is always one of the first ones that I recommend to people if they haven't seen it. I used to have a huge collection of different posters, but I have sold off several of them. I had one that were the artwork from Joel Robinson. Candace even did a Leslie Vernon art print,
Oh, cool.
probably about 13, 14 years ago or something. Because I asked her to do it because I love the film, and I actually introduced that movie to her as well, and she loves it as well. And she has also said in the past like how if that was that Nathan Basil's first film, what a awesome job, and he just had like a lot of charisma, playing that role. Like I love the scene where they're sitting there and he's running back and forth and he's talking about, as he's got to have that cardio for him. So
Oh
and he's talking about how like when it shows him like walking, and then or they see him like approaching him like he's just walking, but they're running, but that he's also when they're not looking, he's running to try to catch up with them. Um, and it's so hilarious because you look at all these the documentary part of this where they're interviewing him and stuff. It includes all of this stuff that he's talking about where if you grew up watching slasher films and stuff, and like you see like either Jason's walking or Michael Myers is walking at a slow pace, but they always seem to catch up with them at some
yeah,
point.
because they teleport, Chris. The game taught us that. Jason
And
teleport.
that's what they explore in this movie Behind the Mask, because there's an explanation for everything.
Right, exactly.
That's why I love it. And if you're a slasher fan, this is one you gotta watch this one,
Right.
because it does if you and everything that you love about a slasher film, whether it be the characters, the whole final girl thing, uh, the unexplained reasoning as to how they're catching up with these people that are running away from all that stuff is like they go into detail about this and that in when they're interviewing Leslie in this, and it's but then it starts getting, as the film progresses, it does get like kind of darker and darker as and the mood starts changing as and it becomes, in the end, it's more serious. And then even a little bit halfway through the film too, when and I don't think we even mentioned her, but Zelda Rubinstein is in this movie. Her from Poltergeist.
Yeah.
And this was one of the last films I think she did before she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So she has an interesting role in it as well when they're in the library scene.
She's the librarian, and she.
Yeah, yeah.
And does anybody else know what else Zelda Rubinstein was in, like car wise?
Well, there's that one. What's it called? It's like, I think it's the last film she was ever in. Um, it's from the 2000s.
Well, I'm thinking about one that's older than that. I'm playing pop quiz time with Chris.
The only one I can think of is Poltergeist, but I can't think of anything else.
She was in a movie. I want to say this one was like early 80s, called Anguish. If you haven't seen that, you should check it out.
I've heard of that one. Actually, I was wrong. This was her last. Behind the Mask was her last.
Her last one.
Yeah, and the other one I was thinking of was came out the same year though, and so I don't know if they're credited both as 2006, but the other one I was thinking of was Southland Tales. Have you ever seen that? It's an anthology
I think
film.
I have. It's just been a little bit since I saw it.
Yeah, she's in that. But Anguish, I have heard of that one, but I've never seen it.
That's an interesting, and I might bring that one up as a bizarre film that I've seen for Friday Foolish.
I think I do have that movie that I obtained through James's collection, but I've never seen it. I think Anchor Bay may have put that one out.
I want to say, yeah, that sounds.
But I was looking at her like credits here. She was in an episode of Tales from the Crypt as well. I forgot about that.
Yeah, she was.
But yeah, she does a really good job in this one. And this, like I said, this was her last film she did before she passed away. And I just, and another, I highly recommend this film to anybody that loves slasher films, because it just explores the whole formula of slasher films. And it's kind of like one of those things. There was a show that used to come on Fox back in the 90s, where it was this like magician, but he wore this black mask, and he was on there and he was like revealing all the secrets of how they did these different magic tricks and stuff on stage. And I remember that.
I do remember that.
I forget what that show was called, but I remember like when that came out, They never revealed who the guy was behind the mask because a lot of other magicians were pissed off about that show and how he was revealing how they did the tricks. And that's kind of like how this is. This mockumentary, if you want to call it that, of Behind the Mask is because they're interviewing Leslie Vernon throughout this film crew and he's just kind of revealing all of the tips and tricks of what he of
Giving
how
away
he
all the secrets.
his strategies, what he does.
Yeah.
Um, so it's very interesting. It's very different from anything else
It's
that I've ever seen.
it's like, a serial killer honing their craft.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
exactly.
like a writer would
Yeah.
hone their craft or
I
whatever.
don't know if let me look and see if it came out after this. Well, it actually came out the same year. I was going to say if you've ever watched Dexter, there's like stuff in Dexter that kind of is similar to some of the stuff in this as well. As far as like because like Dexter, because he's kind of like a serial killer, but he like hunts other serial killers, and so there's kind of like strategy exposed and stuff in it within Dexter as well. And that's a show I never could finish though. I don't know
I
about
never
you.
did finish it either.
Yeah, I
Didn't
couldn't get
want
huge
to.
into it.
But so one more question I had for Chris because I want to see his take on Leslie Vernon's mask because I really like the look of this mask.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just love the whole get up, the lawn johns underneath the overalls, and the mask is awesome. I love the
Yeah,
mask
the
he wears
mask is perfect.
because it's like that bluish, like with the kind of like a frown, like and he wears like black makeup around his eyes underneath the mask to give it a darker looking a look to
Or
his eyes,
hollow, yeah.
and then he's got like kind of like that, like kind of wild looking hair coming out on the top of the mask. And I have came close on several different occasions at when they have Mask Fest during Horror Hound. I've
Mhm.
seen a lot of different custom mask makers make that mask,
Yeah.
and yeah, I've came close several times to purchasing one because I absolutely love it, and because it's so simple, but at the same time, it's like nothing else that I've seen.
It's
Um,
so creepy though. It's
it
simple,
is,
but it's very, very creepy. And I don't know if y'all can see this here, but there's a glare on my computer too, or from my computer and my lights. But there's kind of what the mask looks like. You can see those hollow eyes and that kind of bluish tint and the wild hair that Chris was talking about.
and most of the merchandise that you will find of this film is not official. They didn't have a lot of official merchandise for this movie other than like the posters and a few other promotional things. If any kind of figures or stuff like that, you will see. I think there's been a few like Fright Rags and a few other t-shirt companies have done t-shirts, but as
Mhm.
far as any kind of like figures or statues or masks or anything, all that stuff is going to be custom stuff that you'll see at either on Etsy or at conventions.
Right.
I don't think that they have released an official action figure of him, but I could be wrong. If they have, somebody please let me know. I would love to have it.
That would be cool.
I wish that they would put like do a Tony Terror of that. I think it would look really cool as a Tony Terror, Leslie Vernon. But I just don't know if the movie is popular enough for them to.
Maybe Candace could make one of her dolls,
Yeah, I
Leslie
could get
Vernon
Candace to
doll.
make one. She could for sure do it.
Oh,
I may do that. It's a good idea, Dana. Thanks.
Candace will kill me now. You said you told Chris to ask me to make a Leslie Vernon doll.
But yeah, that mask though, I'm glad you brought that up. That's something that needed to be discussed is because of how cool that thing is.
Well, because as horror fans and slasher fans in particular, we've seen a lot of masks
Yeah.
over time and a
That's
lot of
that
makeup.
yeah, that's definitely something that always plays a very important part in these classic slasher films. Now, Freddy didn't wear a mask. I mean, like Robert Englund wore makeup and everything, but but in the movie, that's just supposed to be his like just his burnt face.
Yeah, exactly.
But but you have Jason Voorhees with the hockey mask. You have Michael Myers with the which is basically
Yeah,
a
and
Captain Kirk mask from that they just painted. And
but
then
it's fantastic what they did with it to make it look so creepy.
yeah, and then you have Leatherface, all the different
But you
masks
know,
that he wears.
Leatherface, they didn't talk about Leatherface on this movie,
They
did they?
did, and I wonder if that there had to be some kind of like rights there
I
that they
get
could,
you.
because I believe during that time at least. They because they mentioned Freddy and well, I don't know because Michael Myers wasn't under the same properties as Freddy and Jason because I believe at that time New Line Cinema owned both Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger. But
Mhm.
like they mentioned Michael Myers and they mentioned Chucky in this as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe just there had just maybe they wanted to include Leatherface as well, but maybe there was just a rights problem there that
I
they.
was just thinking about that. They mentioned most of the big ones, and then I was like, well, where was Leatherface in there?
But that kind of sparks an idea though that I was talking about of all the different like masks. That's one of the big tropes of slashers is mask or just makeup effects in general for to make the person look like Cropsy in The Burning. He doesn't wear a mask, but he has like a very disfigured face.
Yeah.
But in my can't talk. My Bloody Valentine, you have the minor mask, and then
Minor
there's just the
mask. Yeah.
I think that, but the idea I came up with is that maybe you and Candace could do like a Friday Foolish sometime of like your favorite like masks worn in
Yeah.
horror films.
Yeah. I think I'm going to write that down, Chris, because I've been trying to write down different ideas so we can keep a running list of things
Because I
for
can remember at one time in one of the Horror Hound magazines, my friend Nathan Thomas Milliner, he he does a lot of artwork for the Screen Factory and different boutique Blu-ray companies. He's done work for NECA, different all kinds of different stuff. He's really got his art out there on like t-shirts through Fright Rags. I think he just did a Vincent Price shirt for Fright Rags. But he there was an article once that they were talking about all those different masks and stuff um, in like horror history, and he did the artwork for that article in Horror Hound magazine, and it's just like a wall with all of these hooks on the wall, and it's just there's just all these different rows of all these different masks, whether it be like Jason or Michael Myers or Ghostface, or he even had the Halloween 3 mask with the pumpkin, the skull, and the witch, and then I mean that's very interesting. I've always um, known that I always usually love horror films if some kind of mask is involved, and you look at stuff like Terror Train, all the different masks that are used in that one. That would definitely be a really good topic for you guys to cover.
Yeah, I love that idea, and Blissful says that's an awesome idea. Um, yeah, so I've got 3 movies written down for our, bizarre films this week, um, but, I guess me and Chris can go ahead and, give our rating on this before I forget for us to give our rating on Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. So, Chris, what's your
You know,
rating?
initially I was thinking a 5, but I'm not going to do that here because, like I said, I normally keep the a 5 reserved for the most special films in my heart. And like I said, the only one I think I've done on here so far is Sleepaway Camp as a 5.
Right.
But I'm gonna go just a little notch lower, and I'm gonna say a 4.5 on this.
Okay. So visualize a half. We need TJ on here to like do the paper with the half line. I promise you guys, I am gonna because I want to do the half, and it wouldn't be that hard to make a half
Mhm,
deadite on there. It's just that I've been working on ideas for the shop and working on, I did that new intro for Everybody Wants England, which, by the way, I hope you guys and gals enjoyed that got to watch that
mhm.
premiere tonight. But I'm gonna get things done and stuff. I just gotta find the time to do them. I'm gonna make I'm gonna try really hard because I don't have any watch alongs to do this weekend to get me and Candace's Scooby Doo mashup shirts done so that I can get Candace's mailed out to her.
And once again, Diana, we just had this past weekend. We had the boys' birthday party for Raiden and Henley, and I just want to thank you again for
Oh yeah.
those T-shirts that you done for they turned out phenomenal. That's something I want to help plug for you too. Anybody that's watching
Appreciate that.
is that she does amazing custom work, guys. I mean the transfers look great on these shirts that we received for the boys. Um, and they absolutely love those shirts. Henley absolutely loved
He was so cute in his shirts. Or
and
his I
um,
did see the one shirt. I didn't see him in the Mario Kart shirt, but Candace did tell me he asked about that. He said, "Sissy, where's my Mario Kart shirt?"
but
Uh,
yeah, it's absolutely awesome that you did that, and they love those, and we had a great time. So yeah,
hey, Alpha Romero. It's good to see you in here. It's just a shame me and Chris will be getting off of here soon.
yeah, uh,
Um, but it's good to see everybody no matter what time you come in here.
yeah, absolutely, always.
Um, and I guess I'll give my rating real quick, but I'm a little bit more. I throw these fives around a little bit more than other people do, but I'm going to give it 5 deadites out of fives because I really, really enjoyed it. And maybe that's because this was a first time watch for me as well as 2001 Maniacs. And it's still like really fresh and I'm excited about it and all that. Um, but I've still probably, even if you asked me a few years from now what my rating was, it probably wouldn't go down any lower than a 4.
Well, I'd say a lot of that has to do with Robert Englund's portrayal in this for you too, right? Because I mean, like
Oh, yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
we talked about that earlier. He's basically like this rendition of Dr. Loomis from the Halloween films, and I mean, he's not seen like they don't have him throughout the whole film. Robert Englund's character in this, but when he is on screen, I mean, it's pretty much you're locked in on his character because he does such a great job, and like and it's such a tribute to Donald Pleasance,
Yeah,
really.
definitely a
Um,
tribute, and I love Donald Pleasance in the Halloween movies, and I get some people are gonna laugh at this, but I have such a renewed appreciation for Robert Englund since I've been doing these retrospectives on or the
mhm.
series of retrospectives that I get giddy like a schoolgirl when I see him now. Oh, it's Robert Englund. He's on the screen. And so when he popped up in this, I was like, oh, there he is. And he's doing a portrayal of Donald Pleasance's character from Halloween.
And yeah, and I don't know why we didn't mention this earlier, Dana, but it comes in perfect timing since this was just announced yesterday. But Robert Englund will finally be receiving his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Woo! Yes.
And so both him and John Carpenter were both announced as the newest
Oh,
additions to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So
awesome.
that's
That
really
that
awesome.
deserves a celebration. I may have to eat another piece of key lime
And
pie for that.
and they're this year is the 40th anniversary of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I'm shocked that there's not more stuff being put out to celebrate that anniversary, because that's a huge milestone for that film.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's maybe why Robert Englund was selected this year for that, is in honor of the 40th anniversary. But I mean, Robert Englund, it's been too long. I think it's been too long for them to not induct him into that, or have him have a star added to the. He should have had that a long time ago, honestly.
Wow.
Uh, but they're doing it regardless. They're doing it now. That's all that matters.
You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to have my own celebration in honor of the 40th anniversary of A Nightmare on Elm Street. And here's
You
what I'm
should.
going to do. We are going to have a watch along for the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Not this weekend, but the following weekend when I do the watch alongs again.
Awesome.
And I will give you guys that are in here, you will get the option, that includes Chris, of do you want another Nightmare on Elm Street film for Sunday? Or would you want me to just like randomly pick some movie to put
I
on that?
think you should do the original
Mhm.
and watch along for the original,
Okay.
and then for the second night, do a watch along for New Nightmare.
That's an excellent idea, Chris. So I'm writing that down.
Because that way, those both of those are Wes Craven's. Because we can not only talk about Robert Englund and everybody that's involved in Nightmare on Elm Street, but we can talk about Wes Craven too at the same time.
Yes,
Because
we can. It'll be like a tribute to Wes Craven as well, who I've said before, when Wes Craven passed away, I've been bummed out every time a horror icon passes away, whether they were a director or an actor or an actress or whatever. But for some reason, Wes Craven's death hit me very hard
yeah, same
because
here.
he had been, evidently, he had been sick with cancer for a while, but his death seemed to come sudden. It's like one day Wes Craven was here, and the next day it's just like, sorry, folks, Wes Craven's gone. And that
Because when it happened at the time, it was just unfortunate timing, because Horror Hound Weekend was actually working on bringing him into their show. And I believe it would have been like the first convention he had done in several years, because he used to do a lot of those Fangoria Weekend of Horror shows, but he had not done one in several years. And yeah, in that same year that he passed, they were working on trying to bring him to Horror Hound, but just didn't work out, unfortunately. And it, like you said, it really hit me hard when he passed, because I have such a high appreciation for his work. Um, and there's several directors like that, but he's one of the top ones in the horror genre. I always think of whenever I'm thinking of horror film directors. Wes Craven is always towards the top of that list.
yeah,
And and John Carpenter is my favorite, and luckily, we still have him here with us. Like I said, he's getting his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame as well.
mhm,
Um, but we've had several of those top horror directors pass, including Wes Craven and George Romero. George Romero was another huge one that hit me hard, and it still does
yeah,
every year on the anniversary of his death, which is coming up here, I'm think pretty soon. If it's not already passed. But then you got to have Toby Hooper, and then even guys like John Carl Buechler, who was also known for effects. He was also an excellent director.
mhm.
So
William Friedkin,
yeah,
that
William
was a
Friedkin,
hard one to lose too.
just Herschel Gordon Lewis,
Mhm.
Ruggero Deodato, a lot of but they're and some of those top tier like horror film directors are no longer with us. But we got very few that still are, thankfully, like John Carpenter and Dario Argento and guys like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that would be a fantastic idea, Dana,
Mm.
to cover both of those Wes Craven nightmare films.
And don't hold me to this, but I am going to try my best to get some kind of cake to celebrate, and
Oh wow!
I'm gonna try to get some Freddy Krueger guys to put on the cake.
Or you could just do like a cake, like a simple like round cake, or like a square cake, and
Right.
just do like red and green stripes,
Yeah.
and then maybe like get something to make like little gloves
Yeah.
on there or something.
There's a lot of different things, but keep on the lookout. I'm going to try my best to come up with a 40th anniversary cake for a Nightmare
Yeah,
on Elm Street
that's
because we
fun.
got to do it upright. Maybe I'll even put like some red and green candles on it,
Yeah,
40 of them, and put them all
that
over.
would be really fun, Dana. I think that would be
Yeah,
awesome.
and I'll try to blow out 40 candles.
So I have to ask you a question. So I noticed on tonight you ranked both Behind the Mask and 2001 Maniacs a 5.
Yeah.
So if you had to choose one over the other, what would it be?
I liked them both, but I guess 2001 Maniacs just because I
It
had
is. It's
so much
really good.
mhm,
I mean, like for me, it'd be Behind the Mask for sure. But it's 2001 Maniacs is close for me.
yeah,
Because now if I'm looking at it in a perspective of just looking at Robert Englund's roles in those, excuse me, roles in those films, um, I would definitely choose 2001 Maniacs.
mhm,
Even though I love the tribute to Donald Pleasance as the character of Halloran in Behind the Mask, I just feel like that Mayor Buckman character is a lot more fun and
yes,
charismatic, and it's because I look at both of those films as Behind the Mask and 2001 Maniacs as both comedy horror. And
yeah,
in its own way, Hatchet is also kind of comedy horror if
yeah,
you wanna look at it like that. But I feel like, with 2001 Maniacs, the Mayor Buckman character really shines. And that's
mhm,
to me, and it's not just because it's Robert Englund, but I feel like he's the best part of that whole movie. Because every time that Robert Englund is on screen in 2001 Maniacs, it's like my eyes at least are like glued to the screen. And I'm like, because it's such a fun character
mm,
and to watch.
yeah, definitely I agree on all points with that, Chris. Um, but, all good things must come to an end, unfortunately. But I've had a lot of fun with this edition of Everybody Wants England. We're just about at the 2 hour mark, which
Yeah.
seems to be, I've heard other people say that 2 hours is a good stopping point. I know sometimes I get carried away having so much fun that we go on for 3 hours or more. Candace and I have even done that with Friday Foolish. And it's just because I'm having so much fun with friends on
Mhm.
here. And it's just like it's just one big hangout. We're just hanging out and we're talking movies and music and books or whatever, strikes our fancy at that particular time. But it is now the 2 hour mark, just a little bit over. But I want to thank Chris for being on here with me for this edition of Everybody Wants England. And I want to thank everybody that was contributing in chat. And even if you weren't contributing in chat, thank you for being here and watching me and Chris talk about these movies tonight. Because I'm not saying that you got to come in on chat, because some people might be uncomfortable with doing that. They would maybe rather just jump in here and see, hey, what are these two people talking about?
That's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, you definitely don't. You want to keep people in their comfort zone when it comes to that. But this, if you ever have the urge to, you know, put something in chat, talk with us. We love that. We love interacting with everybody in chat, seeing everybody's comments, because you know sometimes people will say things and comment in the comments on chat, and it'll inspire us, you know, to have another conversation about whatever
Yeah,
you're talking
or
about.
or it brings up something that we wanted to mention, but we forgot for
Yeah,
whatever reason.
like Batman nerd mentioned Home Alone earlier. We're not in anything to do with Home Alone tonight on as far as the topics go on this show, but it was interesting to, you know, he brought that up about because the girl from Behind the Mask was also in Home Alone, so we kind of went off a tangent there a little bit.
I might have to do a watch along on Home Alone when it gets closer to Christmas time this year, so that we can discover once and for all who was Kevin's siblings and who was his.
Yeah, you should do like a thing, like a 12 days of Christmas or something like, you can do like, you know, kind of mix like Home Alone in there, do a lot some like Christmas horror stuff like Black Christmas, Silent Night, Deadly Night. You know, just kind of have a theme going with that, like yeah, around
Yeah,
sometime in December.
we could definitely do that because maybe maybe a little bit before Christmas we start doing them because I'm doing the watch alongs every other weekend, and that way maybe we could get 12 of them in before Christmas time.
Yeah, I
December.
mean, because there's like you could you do like watch alongs, or you could just kind of like do like kind of like a one off series just for
Yeah,
December, where you did it on a certain day and you maybe like cover like 2 or 3 films per
yeah.
show each week. Um, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you could do, a lot of fun ideas.
I'll try to come up with some kind of show that we can do. And maybe I can get Chris on here. Maybe a few other people will want to come on. Maybe we can get Candace on here to talk about uh,
Yeah, and
different.
even like Friday, if you did a Friday Foolish with
Yeah,
Candace, you could even like cover stuff like that on a Friday Foolish during that time, and you know, not just December, but that's something you could also look at the other months prior to that, like you know, in October you could do a lot of the Halloween different
yeah,
cool ideas with like Friday
most, cer-
Foolish, like
most
do like
certainly.
a Halloween month or something, like all of October, like everything Halloween related.
Yeah, that would be really fun. Oh, before we get off here though, I did want to remind people that I had an idea rolling around in my head for the next week's apples and oranges. And I was thinking about it because I kept seeing not Robert Englund, but Kane Hodder in these movies.
Mhm.
And what I wanted to talk about was the controversy surrounding Kane Hodder being replaced as Jason for Freddy versus Jason. What do you think about that one, Chris?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something to talk about. I mean, I know that he was hurt over that he wasn't
Yeah.
selected to be in that, because that's something people had been anticipating for years, was to finally have a Freddy versus Jason.
Mhm.
And you know, at that time, Kane Hodder was the most well known Jason. He had just portrayed him in 4 back to back to back to back films.
Yes. Yes, he did. He definitely did. He was the first person I identified with Jason Voorhees, with the character of Jason Voorhees, because Kane Hodder was the person that stuck with it until. And I'm just going to say this. I'm just going to put this out there. He was unceremoniously crapped on, is what was
I
done.
agree. Yeah.
I have to
No,
agree with anybody that says that he was, done wrong in that respect. But I'll save all that for the actual apples and
yeah.
oranges. So if Chris wants to come on, if some of the rest of you want to come on, maybe somebody has a different idea. Maybe they think it was justified. Maybe they've got other information they'd like to share. I'd love to either have you on on camera, or if you don't feel comfortable, if you want to just talk about it in the chat, that's fine as well. But nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to call you a moron or anything if you have a difference of opinion. We don't do that on here. We try to, play nice
Yeah.
with each other.
Sometimes. If you don't like Kane Hodder, you're stupid. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, there won't be any of that, I promise. We just kid around sometimes about different things. But I'm going to have to run to the restroom again as I usually do. So I guess we'll tie this up. But me and Chris are off like a dirty shirt, just like Ducky and Pretty in Pink. But I want to remind everybody, as always, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. Have a fantastic rest of your night, folks. The night is young. It's only a little bit after 10 Eastern time, so we still got some nighttime left. Thank you, Blissful. You say great live, Dane and Chris. We appreciate that a whole lot. And I echo Blissful. Have a beautiful night, everyone. Let's finish up this week on a high note, shall we? And then move into a fantastic weekend. And hopefully everybody's got some fun things planned for this weekend or a restful weekend. You know,
Yeah.
if
I'm hoping I get to rest this weekend.
But anyway, we're gonna get off here for the night. So goodbye, everybody, and I'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.